Okay. Short-term survival versus long-term survival. Um, I'm a short-term prepper. I prep for 8 days to 30, 8 hours to 30 days, and not a day more. There was a time when I was a long-term prepper. Um, prepped for the fall of the government or the. I think Y2K kind of put an end to it for me. That's going back 25 years, but that's when I started prepping more short term and less long term. On the bright side, if you're a long term prepper, you probably have everything that you need to get through a short term emergency. Now, but I consider short term prepping just basic preparedness. Um, being prepared for anywhere from say 2 weeks to 30 days uh, for power outages and other outages of service. Um, you know, Short-term preparedness, short-term survival is based in reality. It's there's no way around that. Um, Storms will happen. Uh, the power is going to go out at some point or another. Um, the water and the gas may go out at some point or another, depending on the strength and severity of the storm that hits you. Short-term survival is for short-term survival, short-term prepping is for the real deal. You know, Shit that can happen any day. Um, Even if it's just some idiot hitting a transformer in his car and taking your power out for 8 or 12 hours. Um, you can be prepared for that and get through that a lot more comfortably. Long-term prepping, long-term survival, that's iffy. I did that for, God, 35 years. I don't do that anymore. Long-term prepping, you need a dozen guns, and each one of them has a specific purpose, and you need to know how to, you know, butcher a deer or butcher a hog, which, by the way, I do know. Um, Short-term prepping, not so much so. Probably the biggest difference between short-term prepping and long-term prepping is that in short-term prepping, the police still exist, fire department still exists, the ambulances still exist, EMS. Um, they may take longer to get to you, uh, but as soon as the emergency is over, it's back to normal or back to close to normal. Long-term prepping, it's all about being prepared for a future in which you know emergency services no longer exist or have turned on you or you know become more problem than aid. Um, that's probably the big difference. You know, Other than just the time frame. I mean, if you're a long-term prepper, you may be looking at 30 years, and I'm looking at 30 days. Um, you know, you could be right. I could be the one that gets screwed. But I think, so far my life has shown me that being prepared for natural disasters and other, you know, short-term problems is prudent, whereas being prepared for long-term problems is a little out there. You know, I could be wrong. I could be screwed at the end of 30 days. When we're out of food and water uh, and other drink. weeks. You know, I could be wrong, but at the very least, for the first 30 days, I'm going to be comfortable, or relatively comfortable. Okay, long-term prepping versus short-term prepping. Those are really the differences. Uh, be prepared, stay safe, and be comfortable. David Keynes. Thank you.